Hey everyone. Just a little heads up on this video as well as the next video. These were filmed back in September and October, and I pushed back the start of season 2 in order to bump up the quality of production and schedule some things out farther in advance. So videos 1 and 2 of this season will reference things back in fall, and then starting in episode 3 and onward, those will be back to a spring 2025 cadence. So they'll be referencing things that just happened. So that's it. Just a little heads up. Thanks. I did some robotics in high school. Very little though, and I wasn't particularly good. But we had a school mascot, so we made state one year, and then we someone stole the mascot outfit from the football team and brought it with to state, so I got to wear the mascot outfit, and that was really fun. That was definitely the most fun I had in robotics, so that's how I found out I wasn't cut out for like engineering or anything.
Did you guys get in trouble for taking the suit?
No, I don't think so, because we gave it back before the football team did their whole thing. But yeah, that was really fun. Hello and welcome back to the second season of the As I Understand It podcast. I'm your host, Cam Geddes.
And I'm your co-host, Graham Nesbitt.
And as a quick little refresher on the podcast, this is the work-life podcast about careers, adulthood, and the evolving world we live in. Each episode, we're going to ask 3 questions, 2 relating to the works and lives of our guests. We'll give a little back and forth, give our perspectives, and maybe leave with more questions than we came in with. On the first episode of season 2, we're bringing on some fan favorites again. First is my old roommate, Matthew Dickerson, if you want to say hi.
Hi.
Glad to have you back. And the second is half of the Katie Squared duo. Katie, if you want to say hi.
Hello.
And before we get started with our topics for today, we'll say a few words about ourselves. I'll go first. So for those of you new to the podcast, my name is Cam Geddes. I'm 25, graduated from Hope College in May of 2021 with degrees in economics and global studies. I work currently as a retail sales analyst with the Kraft Heinz company, and I actually recently moved to Oak Creek, Wisconsin with my girlfriend Olivia. In my free time, I can be found weightlifting and playing video games and learning how to use an air fryer I bought recently. So,
Ooh,
yeah, it's pretty sweet.
You'll go down the rabbit hole. It's good.
Yeah, I'm a big air fryer fan. Graham, how about you? You want to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, my name is Graham. I also enjoy dabbling in the air fryer scene. I'm 26 years old, graduate of Wheaton College. I currently work as an addictions counselor in the Rockford region. In my free time, I enjoy going to the gym, animating, and drinking lots and lots of sweet, sweet coffee.
Thanks, Graham. Matthew, how about you remind the guests of your background?
Yes. Matthew Dickerson. I also went to Hope College with Cam, graduated same year, and then went on to pursue a master's degree from Purdue University, which I actually just recently graduated from in the winter of 2023. I'm now an instrumentation engineer at a fusion energy startup in Jersey City, New Jersey. And in my free time, I have recently acquired a crock pot, which I'm trying to come up with recipes for. Having a lot of fun with that, as well as playing board games and bouldering.
Nice,
Crock
very cool.
pots are a game changer.
Yes.
Yeah, big fan of the crock pot. Katie, how about you round us out?
My name is Katie Trost. I graduated from Hope College in spring of 2022 with a bachelor's in business and a minor dabbling in classical studies, just Latin for fun. As of now, I do marketing for small businesses and campaign management, as well as teaching them how to utilize tools that are offered free within Google and Meta so that they're better prepared for taking over the role themselves, and then I can be pulled in seasonally as needed for larger campaigns. In my free time, oh boy, I'm gonna choose only two hobbies to talk about. I do model painting, so I go and I rescue models that look like they're sad at the thrift store, and I give them a repaint job. And the other thing I do is I set up events for the community age group of my age, because there aren't many people my age in the area, and so it's a great way to network and get to meet other people.
Gotcha. Thanks, Katie.
Excellent.
All right. So now back into our first question of the day, first question of the season. We're going to expand off of a little bit, get into more of some new and upcoming events in the US and some kind of current topics. So I figured in the spirit of that, the first one is, do you think the new Tesla Optimus robots will become mainstream? So I'm going to paraphrase from a New York Post article, as well as a couple other articles I saw, kind of cursory talking about this AI Day event they had. Basically, Elon Musk and Tesla, they've unveiled their humanoid assistant robots. They're planning supposedly for them to retail between $20,000 and $30,000 long term when they're released to the public. So they're calling it the Optimus, based off of the Transformers series. The Optimus is similar in size and stature to an adult. It's like bipedal, 2 arms, 2 legs. It's claimed to be capable of performing things like daily chores, working in industrial settings, and providing companionship, which I thought was interesting. Musk is aiming to have the robots, I believe, completely autonomous when they're released, utilizing AI and all that. But during the AI Day event, a lot of sources I saw were kind of theorizing that the models being shown were using teleoperation, which is essentially remote control. Some critics speculate that the models are going to be facing issues in the way of like legal challenges, concerns about safety standards and data privacy, and obviously what happens if there's malfunction. I think that's probably one of the biggest talking points I've seen. So, Matthew is our resident resident science guy. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your perspective on the robots, given your engineering background?
Sure. Sure. Thanks, Cam. Yes. First of all, they are a very impressive feat of engineering. I will say that how they operate, function, and interact with everyday objects and people is fascinating and quite a leap forward from even 10 years ago where robotics was. Now, to your question of will they be a viable product and will they be something for the market? I would turn to what is the purpose of the robot? What function are they really taking on? For a startup to have money, for example, to really have a product that you'd like to sell, it has to replace or overcome a task that is something you're willing to pay for. Getting people to spend money is a pretty hard task. You'll find out they're quite happy to do something for free if they can. And the tasks that it really highlighted, it seems like are already being done by cheaper, simpler, and to be out terribly honest, easier methods of human to human interaction, which I don't think we'll ever replace. Now, if you look at Boston Dynamics' kind of take on this, their robots are hoping to replace humans in situations of dangerous or hazardous interactions, such as monitoring nuclear power plants or conducting remote inspections of hazardous materials. And I think in that case, you have a real situation where you can remove a human from a hazardous situation and improve their quality of life, improve the environment by implementing a robot. Something like implementing it for firefighters, where we no longer have to send in people to burning buildings.
Mhm.
But in the case of Elon Musk's, it might serve you drinks or walk your dog. These are points where humans actually have entertainment. I enjoy walking my dog. Why would I want a robot to do that? And I think that he's really targeting, or it seems like that those targets are misaligned with the goal of robotics and the goal of, honestly, a startup in general.
Yeah, I'll follow up with what Matthew is saying. I think that I think Matthew hit the nail on the head that sometimes limitation is not necessarily the technology, but more about the consumer application. And for context too, Boston Dynamics, for those of you unfamiliar, is another kind of life-size robot startup. They've I think I think they've been at the robot design longer than Tesla, but their robots also have a very different like kind of shape and demeanor to them. So, to kind of a contrast to Optimus. Um, yeah, I think in like in pop culture and in media, there's kind of always been this assumption that there's going to be kind of humanoid robots coming into play, and whether they're more for utility purposes or if they're more like androids where they're meant to kind of replicate human looks and feel and all of that and kind of social interactions. Um, who's to say if that will ever take off? But I think given the $25,000 price tag, I think Musk and Tesla at large, their strategy of kind of shotgunning it, being like, oh, it can do industrial, it can also do for socialization, it can be this really nifty parlor trick, it can be used for household chores and walking your dog, and definitely the companionship part. I think he's kind of aiming at a lot of objectives there, and to have one robot do all of that, um, I think is kind of diluting the purpose of a more specialized model. And again, for $25,000, let's say it's not particular cheap compared to having someone like if you have a local like home care company, think of like maids and house cleaning services to kind of do the chores for you when you're too busy yourself. I think it's hard to see someone substituting that for a robot if need be, given how much of an emphasis people put on care for their home and all that, and generally to the social hurdle of, okay, do we really want robots like inside the house, like listening to us, like scanning, basically how our home looks and what we're doing while it's there? There's a big social hurdle there that I'm not really sure is gonna pay off, but we'll see. Katie, if you have some thoughts on that. I saw you kind of grimacing a little bit when I was mentioning the privacy element.
Um, I have to admit, I think it's amazing what tech has been able to do. I also have a worry about the driving factor of the company, and that being Elon. And that to say, I'm not saying that what Elon has built is not impressive. Clearly he's a very driven guy. That being said, he's never once followed through on a promise that he's given in terms of unveilment of it being remotely
Mm,
on time. And when it is unveiled, there's multiple issues between engineering that even Ford and GM would not even be selling if there were issues with their cars of that nature that Tesla's having. And so I worry about it with a humanoid robot factor that there's an even greater risk of um, checks and balances of not being as good about saying this is not ready for unveilment. Because I don't trust Elon, frankly, in that regard. If it was, Boston Dynamics or something else, I'd be more inclined to trusting it. The other thing I look at as a marketer with the $20,000, $30,000 price tag, you're already starting with a very small market. And Elon in past, when he's done these product unveilments, he's like, oh, we're gonna sell insert crazy huge number that they're not gonna sell for the price tag. And
yeah,
so
I
I'm
didn't want to say, but when I was Googling it, he said that it would be, I think he said something along the lines of it would be the highest selling innovation ever, or something along those lines. So it's a pretty high bar.
Yeah. So
But yeah.
I don't think it's that feasible in the short term, for sure. In the long term, as we get more experience with AI and better checks and balances and better legalese with it, I do see it becoming more of norm, but I don't think it will ever be, at least not in the next 50 to 70 years, a feasible piece of equipment for the average American to have. Um, Especially with all the fear around it. That being said, I recognize I'm not the best person to talk. I think Mickey Mouse is terrifying. I can't do mascots. I can't do anything that's kind of human, but almost human. Really freaks me out.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely not the market.
Gotcha. Graham, any thoughts before we go to the next topic?
Yeah. Off the bat, assuming these do come out, these are not going to be marketed towards the average day-to-day consumer. I don't know many people that just have 20 to 30,000 laying around to blow on something. In the first few years of this actually being implemented, it's going to be aimed at celebrity status, the elites, people who can have money to blow on that. Maybe it might become mainstream due to the meme material. We might have some celebrities showing them off on TikTok and social media and whatnot. So it might get some exposure. But from an actually applicable standpoint, I don't really see it happening. We also have legal problems. All it takes is for one of these robots to drop one baby in the house or bump over and fall into one little toddler, and then probably the whole thing is going down. So definitely some areas I foresee difficulty in. We might get an occasional luxury item, but I don't really see it being applicable to the populace anytime soon.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. I think people at large are going to be pretty skittish about these, and you might see them again as kind of an advanced kind of flex on some people if that have the money to spend on, a life-size robot to walk around the house. But yeah, I think in today's economy, especially, you're seeing kind of a shrinking of demand for um, I guess kind of untested or maybe kind of prototype type products like this. So
We also have the iRobot factor. I mean, it's only a matter of time before they turn on us. So
yeah, of course. All right. Well, I think that's enough for the Optimus. Maybe we'll turn to our next question then. Can you and how should you meld your hobbies with your career? And we don't really need a stat for that one because it's so open-ended. But Katie, I know this is a question that was very interesting to you. So if you want to start us off on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many times I've seen with our college students and young adults, there's this sense of I just need to put my face to the grindstone and just do what I'm being handed, and that's true. But that doesn't mean that you can't incorporate other skills or things you enjoy or find skills you enjoy that can make your work easier, more efficient, and frankly a little more fun. Um, I mean, Canva, I've had a lot of fun dabbling with Canva, but also I think there's benefits to like Dungeons and Dragons, like, all the skills there of you're given this character and it has a certain moral code and you're working with this moral code with a group to get to a common goal. Those same skills of negotiation and compromise and um learning about your own character is can all be applied in the workplace. It's just now you're working with, Stacy and HR and so and whatever, and you're just working towards the end goal of a campaign, and it's utilizing all the skills that everyone has brought to the table and is comfortable sharing about to work on XYZ goal. Especially with more of an open conversation table dynamic, which is what D&D builds. So to take those skills and bring those in the workplace, or if you aren't a graphic artist, like in my case, I'm not a graphic artist, but I really do enjoy some of the aspects of looking for graphic design. I've taken multiple art classes to understand where your eye tracks on an ad. I've now been able to use that in my work, and I never thought I was going to use an art history class in my work, and yet here I am, and it actually has made my marketing work much more interesting to me.
Yeah, I think Katie's got a good point there. There's a lot of crossover with storytelling and again, just good use of visual space and things of that nature. Really, regardless of whatever role you're working in, as long as there's a visual component to it. And I'll agree. I mean, I think one thing I'm looking to do at my work is integrate some more creative things. Some people may know I'm like one of my big aspirations that I haven't really been able to action on much this year, but I'm hoping to do is work on some game development stuff. And a lot of that is the artistic side of it. And those are pretty transferable skills. Again, not that I've had the time. I've been looking forward to um, be developing that, but theoretically, that's something I'd like to incorporate more into my work and kind of just put out there as something I'm capable of doing. I think it's always good to be looking for opportunities to broaden your skill set and really a lot of it is getting buy-in from managers and supervisors to let you go outside of your normal task and try new things. So um, that's a great opportunity for really anyone who has a hobby is just to be looking for little avenues to create win-win situations with your employers, or if you're self-employed, bring those skills in on your own terms. Graham or Matthew, any add-ons to that?
Yeah, I've recently got back into reading consistently and reading a lot of different materials. The job I work on is counseling, therapy, and a big part of that is just what you know and how you can interact with people on it. So, being able to have a lot of new ideas come in, especially on the self-help front, is useful. Um, Even if it's not strictly things related to care and recovery, just having an idea of what's popular, it gives you a foot in the door
Yeah.
when talking about popular subjects. It could be books, it could be movies, TV shows, but having something to engage with someone on and connect on is important, at least in most fields, but especially so in this one.
That's a good point. Any
Yeah.
thoughts before we go to the next question, Matthew?
Yeah. Uh, Echoing that, what Graham said, having some way to connect with coworkers is an excellent way to bond, and you get this camaraderie that comes with having similar interests, shared interests. I'll also say, to Katie's point of being using graphic design in her work, I use my grade school, high school art class skills all the time as an engineer. And one of the basis of engineering, I think, is drawing and communication. The biggest recommendation I have for interested engineers is, of course, play with Legos, but also draw. If you want to communicate, you have to be able to draw what is happening. You have to be able to communicate what is happening. And being a great artist is, you'll find a lot of engineers are able to comprehend very large scale problems and situations. And they can do that because they have the imagination, the ability to do so.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there. Talking about, I'm assuming schematics and things like
Mhm.
that, very uh, valuable skills to have to portray concepts as 3D images and all that. Very cool. So, all right. Well, I think we're ready for our last question of episode 1, season 2. Very glad to be rolling on to some of these fun and more advanced questions, I guess, for our second season. So, in that spirit, this one I'll preface by I want to keep it as not cursory level, but out of uh, the next question relates to politics. So I don't want to get into the specifics of politics of who's right, who's wrong, what side is best policy, and all that. More about the broader question. So that question is there a place for politics in the workplace? And as is tradition, I've got some stats from Gallup. Nearly half of US workers in February, that's of 2024, I think, said they had discussed political issues with a coworker in the past month, and that has likely only increased as the election has progressed. Naturally, these encounters are about twice as common among fully on-site employees at 54% than among exclusively remote workers like me at 28%. Those working in male-dominated industries at 52% are more likely than those in female-dominated industries, 42%, and industries with gender parity, 43%, to report discussing political issues at work. Additionally, nearly a third of US adults, 31%, say they've been treated poorly or harassed in the past year because of their political views. By far the most common of the 5 sources of mistreatment Gallup asked about, Americans are less likely to report being mistreated because of their gender, 18%, race, 16%, religion, 10%, or sexual orientation, 7%. And on this broader basis, which includes interactions beyond the workplace, Republicans 36% are more likely than political independents, 30%, and Democrats 27%, to say they have frequently or occasionally been treated poorly in the past year because of their political views. So, and I think those last 2 stats about treatment may have come from a different survey. Yeah, that was conducted in May. So, some interesting stats there too. And again, without getting too much into the details of it, I think I'll just start on this issue. I would say that every workplace is different, and whether or not it's appropriate to have political discussion there, I think depends on the nature of your workplace. So in the US, we especially have a very high expectation regarding freedom of speech and your ability to express yourself, and that's in the common public spaces. But I think in workplace settings, it's different because you're essentially there at the employment at the whim of your employer. And just because you're also free to, anybody basically can start their own company, that's going to lead, because of the diaspora that is beliefs in the US, you're going to get climates that are very open and very interested in having multifaceted political views. And you're going to have other organizations that for the efficiency of business or simply to kind of quell legal troubles, they might not want basically any political speech. So I believe that really does come down to the terms of your employment and kind of feeling out how the political climate of your workplace. So it's tough because, it'd be nice to have kind of like broad sweeping protections over um, your political speech and so on. But if I remember correctly, I don't believe, at least in any workplace I've seen, I don't think political beliefs is legally covered. It's not like a protected class from what I remember. So your mileage may vary, and I think really just trying to remember, particularly that if you're working in a very multinational, multicultural workplace, or if you're one that has a workplace kind of pre-designated opinions regarding like DEI and ESG, if you're familiar with those terms, that means that the company has basically already set certain positions regarding social views. And you just need to be mindful of that if you personally hold a different one. So yeah, it's kind of hard. I wish I had a kind of a more direct advice about it and had more to say about whether it's okay or not, but it's just important to be mindful that the public sector and like the public sphere and what you can talk about there is different from what companies can have. And I don't believe the same political bollards and like safeties and protections apply in the same space privately. So, that's what I've got. I'm not sure who wants to follow up with that.
Yeah, I can go on that one. I've been in two scenarios in the workplace where, in one workplace I was at, and my mindset is don't share any political beliefs, unless you find that all your coworkers, if they share, have similar beliefs, because frankly, you can't unhear what a coworker says, and you definitely
Yep.
can't take back what you say. So, I had one workplace where actually we all kind of leaned the same way, which was kind of exciting because it was like, oh, we could have these actual nice discussions. And then I was in another workplace where they leaned completely different from where I leaned on most issues. And I was like, oh, okay, keep my head down, don't say anything. Okay. But I also was in a weird situation where I was like, well, I can't nod my head and agree when they say these things in the workplace. So I was like, I'm just gonna skedaddle out of that conversation and be like, I have to go over stuff. Because I didn't want to have any sense of where I leaned that they could tell. My mindset is wait until you see what your coworkers say, or just don't discuss it at all. Just in general, it's safer not to. You can't unhear, and I know as a person, I can't be unbiased when someone has told me something that I consider heinous. And so it makes it harder to work with them. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, I need the work here, and my job isn't telling me to do anything that's unmoral, so I'm gonna keep my head down and do my job.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'll follow up what I said earlier about like if it's protected or not from I just found this thing from brooklynworks.brooklynlaw.edu. This is just a particular paper, I believe, but their finding was that although employee political speech is not currently protected at the federal level, there are a myriad of state statutes that protect employee speech from employer retaliation. Some of these states protect speech on a broader level, others protect only political speech. Uh, and some states do not protect employee speech from retaliation, even. So, anyways, Matthew or Graham, anything you want to follow up with there?
Yeah. Graham, you probably got some interesting ones, points that I'm curious about. I'll put my 2 cents in real quick. So, I think we'll see the gender disparity on this one, just because I semi-disagree with Katie. But I think this is coming from a more masculine approach of I can take or direct, take things head on.
Mm.
I think there is a bit of a gender disparity there. I want to recognize, but I think that politics has some role in the right workplace because it naturally will appear in the workplace. Whatever job, whatever profession you enter will have a a the policy will naturally appear. And I I think it's important to try to less associate with a specific political viewpoint and more the viewpoint of specific uh, core elements and why they have them. I'm trying to think or trying to explain such like I worked for a locomotive manufacturer in Erie, Pennsylvania. Um, and this locomotive manufacturer was uh, working for creating diesel locomotives and wondering if they should transition to electric locomotives. And part of that change was driven by global warming and policies of green energy. And that policy had a natural place in the workplace to drive conversations of should we change, should we transition, is this going to be a viable transition because of these policy changes and these global events. So I believe it's an unavoidable topic and it's something that you need to come at with definitely a a sensitive viewpoint in the US. It's a very volatile subject sometimes, but if you can try and focus on individual policies instead of large overviewing topics that may have many undefined elements to it, you can really get to more useful and helpful conversations. I think Cameron, Katie, we were all in a group called Phelps Scholars at Hope College, and we read a book called Difficult Conversations that I would highly
Yeah.
recommend for this.
Yeah, man, what a throwback.
Yeah, long
Um,
time.
yeah, but yeah, I think you got a great point there too. Just about like the interplay of social issues and workplace, uh, workplace discussions, and also too kind of every individual's tolerance for how assertive they want to be with, how willing or not willing they are to uh modify how they represent themselves politically for a workplace. And yeah, that's a good point. Any thoughts before we close out, Graham?
Not a great deal. My stance is basically working with clients only bring up something of that nature if it's going to help them. In the group setting with a lot of different beliefs, it's typically not really the most important thing. If it's individual counseling, then sure, it can, come up and discuss it as needed. I don't have a kind of blanket stance for it, except if it's useful to the client, then sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think it's definitely different when you're approaching someone one-on-one and having a conversation that way, and versus a group setting, particularly if you have kind of like a patient or like a client relationship with the people you're talking with. I hadn't even thought about that actually, because I don't work one-on-one with individuals in that kind of a hierarchy. So yeah, good point. All right, well, I think that will do it today. Yeah, do it today. My gosh, I can't speak today. Anyways, thanks for our two wonderful recurring guests here of Matthew and Katie. Always a pleasure to have you guys on. And thanks for coming back for season 2, round 2. Thanks too for my wonderful co-host Graham, who's I think in pursuit of his cat, I imagine. Oh, snatched him. There we go.
No.
Co-host and mascot. Thanks, Jasper. Anyways, all right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks you all for listening, watching. You should be able to find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, of course, and then we're going to be looking to get in some channels as far as socials, Instagram. Maybe we'll have some sort of poll or contest. I don't know. We'll see. Season 2, anything can happen. But that's it for today. And until next time, have a good one. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, guys.